Today's presenters will be myself, Francesco Scartosi, I'm the Director of Sales of the Americas, and Charles Amiot, who's joining me here, who's the Product Manager for the Converter line of products here at Matrox.
Good afternoon.
So Charles and I, hopefully, we're going to do a good job and really talk to you guys about three very important things we believe you need to think about, ask yourself, and consider before investing in any scan converter on the market. And the way we've cut it up is the first thing is quality and how you measure it. We believe that quality is something that, like all of our products here at Matrox, is feature number one. And it's something that you must definitely consider before looking at any piece of equipment in your production line. Second is workflow flexibility. And what I mean by this is, even though a scan converter can be thought of as a simple device, it could be used in a lot of different ways, and you'll see what we mean. And we also realize that because we've been supplying this product and the scan converter specifically in the market, we know that your needs that are presenting themselves today are not necessarily the same needs or same workflows that you need to do in the future. So the ability to have the scan converter adapt to your changing needs is a very key element in the thought process. And finally, budget. We definitely want to make sure that you do get the maximum quality, maximum flexibility in workflow, but it doesn't have to break the bank. And that's the third thing that we believe you must consider. So I'll warn you right up front, this webinar is going to be very interactive, and I want to make sure that you know that you'll be as much a part of it as I am. So I'll start off with a poll question right off the bat and make sure that we have it right in terms of how we have sliced up the webinar. We want to know what is most important to you, whether it's quality, workflow flexibility, and price. And Charles, as the audience members are responding, any guesses as to what you think is the most important to the audience today?
I think quality is going to stand out. Of course, quality is the key in this type of product, but workflow as well, because if the workflow isn't properly enforced, then it's almost impossible to use a product. And price is also very important, especially for this type of product, since typical HD scan converters are fairly expensive. If you can find a cheaper solution, it's always welcome. But I think quality is going to stand out in this one.
All right, and we're pretty much about at the 80% respondents. There's going to be a couple of poll questions here. We want to make sure that you're all responding to them. So I'm going to wait until the 80%, or if you can get to the 100%. Don't be shy. Please vote. And I'm going to close the poll now because we've reached that limit. I'm going to give it a second. We're going to register that in, and I'll broadcast the results. My guess is I'm looking for an even split, really. I think that all three of these things are important. Maybe there's going to be a clear winner, but I think that these three elements are key for any broadcast piece of equipment. So I'm going to broadcast the polls, and from the results, wow, it looks like 50% definitely say quality, and the other are pretty much evenly split between price and workflow flexibility. That's actually very encouraging to see, because as you've put an emphasis on quality, so have we. And one thing right off the bat I want to put out there is that the Convert DVI family of products use the same IP that is used in other Matrox equipment, and there's a little known division in our video products group, which is our OEM division, and our OEM division makes solutions that are the heart of industry-leading video servers, character generators. So they are the backbone of a lot of high-end equipment. Why am I making that point? Well, because of the fact that you should know that the Convert DVI products that we'll be discussing today have the exact same IP in there. So quality is something we put into every product, no matter what range, no matter what market we're going after. So I'm very happy to hear that quality is important, as the other two are. So let's get into it right away. On the path to quality, you quickly realize that unlike beauty, quality is in fact quantifiable. You know, Charles here might be handsome to me, but to everybody else he might not be so handsome. But quality is not so subjective. It's actually very, very quantifiable. You know, and the best way to understand what the quality is all about is really understanding the signal path that the computer-based content goes through before it turns into an hd-sdi signal. So, how do we measure quality? There are 5 very distinct steps in the signal when it goes through our Convert DVI products. Specifically, it comes in as a DVI-D signal. First step is that we actually convert it to a color space. We do a conversion so that we actually do an RGB to YUV conversion. The next thing is a flicker reduction, making sure that even though the computer-based content is not necessarily designed to ever be broadcast as a 1080i interlaced signal, you have to make sure that the ability to have a stable output and no vibrating video is important. Third step is a time-based correction, and this is something that you have to adhere to if you want to make sure that you're in sync with the different refresh rates from your computer to real video. Scaling is the fourth of 5 very important steps. Obviously, we're not always going to want to broadcast the entire computer content to air. You want the ability to take maybe a portion of that video and broadcast it. If it is the case, then scaling is very important, and you have to do that very well, or there are artifacts that are created that are not very desirable on the output. And finally, Proc Amp Controls. This is the 5th step that while we were in the market, we realized that our customers wanted the ability to adjust, if necessary, the hue, saturation, brightness, and to do so because of the fact that you're part of a production line, you're part of a video production unit, chain, if you will. And the ability to clean up the signal is also very important. And those are the steps before we actually produce a high-quality hd-sdi signal. So let me just jump right into it, step number 1. Why do we pay attention to this? Why am I going to highlight the color space conversion? Well, because not every scan converter is the same. A color space conversion can be argued it's just a mathematical equation, and whoever adheres to that mathematical equation should do it right. Right? Well, not necessarily. Because you have the RGB 8-bit per pixels coming from your computer, you figure if I do a YUV 601 8-bit per pixel translation, you'd be fine. Well, that would be wrong. Wrong if quality is what you're after. Again, not all scan converters are created equal. What we do is we take an RGB 8-bit per pixel signal coming from your computer. We then convert it to YUV 709 color space, not YUV 601, 709. We sample it at 10 bits per pixel so we can have as much sample points as possible to give you the most amount of data. Now, why we do 709? Because we believe your scan converter has to be HD aware. And at this point, you're saying, why is he talking about HD when we're talking about color space? Well, when we were introduced to HD, obviously you're getting a bigger resolution, bigger screen, 6 times more pixels than SD, but also the color depth was changed. The blacks got blacker, the whites got whiter, and this is why a YUV 709 color space was created. And that's what we do within our Convert DVI. And then, of course, we give you the 8-bit per pixel 709 because that is what is expected on the SMPTE output. Okay, so that is doing it right. And this is how we are able to avoid the fact that we're able to get no banding on the output. And here you see if you were going to go an 8-bit to an 8-bit sample versus 8-bit to 10-bit, you have a very clean signal with no banding whatsoever. Okay? So, off to step number 2. Step number 2 is very useful in a scan converter because of the fact that, again, the computer-based content was not created with the intention of it being broadcast as a 1080i signal. And what does that really mean in real life? If you notice, I have Google Earth here, and Google Earth has a lot of thin lines. Even the menus have very thin lines. These lines were not ever intended to be broadcast as an interlaced signal. So if you're going to scan convert it, you want to make sure that there's no vibration in the video. and you want to make sure that you ensure that stable video is on the output, and that's what flicker reduction does. Step 3 is time-based correction. The time-based corrector in the Convert DVI Plus allows us to compensate for changing refresh rates from your computer signal, whether it be 60 Hertz or 75 Hertz, to a video refresh rate of 5997. So without this, you have what is called video tearing. And I'll draw your attention to the center of this high moving frame. So video tearing exists when you have the time-based correction or the syncing between these refresh rates not done properly. It literally looks like the image was torn in half and restitched incorrectly. This is an artifact that does not exist when you have a time-based corrector as part of your signal path. Step 4 is scaling. Obviously, like I said, it's not always the full screen on the computer that's being generated on the output. Sometimes you absolutely do want to scale, for example, a region of interest that might be an SD region of interest on your computer screen, but you want to turn it into an hd-sdi signal. What's necessary there is a very good quality scaler. And what we have is, in the Convert DVI family of products, we have a built-in hardware dedicated 10-bit 422 multi-tab filter. It's a mouthful, but ultimately it's to show you that it's a dedicated scaler, 10-bit scaler, that really gives you very crisp, pristine video. If you have a poor scaler in your unit, you get very, very soft video, which is something that you just don't want to get as a result on your output. Again, throughout this presentation, the way I see a scan converter is a valid SDI signal. I see no difference in it coming from a high-end VTR, a high-end camera. It's a very valid SDI signal. So if we do it right, you could definitely use it within your production, and that's what we're here to show you. Last step is the Proc Amp Controls, whether it be brightness, contrast, saturation, hue. These are all important steps, especially, and the reason why we put these in is because, while we were out there with the Convert DVI, customers were telling us we would need to be able to adjust the Proc Amps and do these cleaning up of the video sometimes, depending on where the source is coming from and depending on the chain that it goes through. So in the feedback, we created the Convert DVI Plus that allowed us to introduce these controls and give the ability to adjust or clean up the video whenever you need. A very high-end feature found on the Convert DVI Plus product. Now, to end this section on quality, I said it was quantifiable. It's quantifiable because of the fact that there's very specific specifications that we have to adhere to, 292M for HD and 259M for SD. These come from the guys at SMPTE, and for those of you who don't know what SMPTE stands for, it's Society of Motion Picture Television Engineers. And what makes the quality of a scan converter better or worse is how close, or whether in fact you even respect the SMPTE specifications. Respecting these specifications means that not only is quality achieved, but you can run a meter, the signal 100 meters and maintain less than 0.1 jitter. And that is, where you get the thumbs up from the SMPTE techies. And this is one of the examples of where you actually would love their approval. So this is all to say that with the Convert DVI, and from the feedback from our poll, quality is important to 50% of you. The quality of the Convert DVI should not even be a consideration, or concern, rather. So off to the workflow considerations, or flexibility. From one day to the next, you really don't know what obstacles might stand in your way in terms of what you need to do with the Convert DVI or what you need to do with a scan converter. In broadcast, for example, you might need to have an emergency interview that needs you to take a region of interest and broadcast that out as an hd-sdi signal, or whether you want to focus in using Google Earth on a particular area of the world, and while talking about it, be able to pan through the image and broadcast that pan. These are all things that we're able to do, and Charles is going to give you a demonstration of that in a little bit. And these are the workflow considerations that went into the feature set of the Convert DVI Plus. Or, again, in news, if you can only access, or the only video of a specific event exists on YouTube, well, being able to go to YouTube, select the region of interest and broadcast that out is vital. A Doppler radar graphic. We've been slammed in the Northeast here with thunder showers and thunderstorms quite regularly, and having the computer generated or content of the Doppler radar on your computer screen turned into a video signal so that you can key your weatherman over it, or even better, because of the fact that we've seen this a lot, being able to scale it, position it, add a color background so you can then send it down to a downstream keyer. This is something that is also very important, so you don't disrupt the regularly scheduled programming. That continues to go out, but your scan converter is doing more than just taking a full screen computer content and outputting it. It's scaling it, positioning it where you want, adding a color background, and off you go. This is something that Charles is quite proud of, and he folded into the Convert DVI Plus product. Hopefully you also find this interesting. In live events, workflows, whether it be a live concert or a live sermon in the house of worship, these are live events where you'd have to use maybe media players to add either dramatic effect or make a point during your sermon. Taking the video window from these media players and scaling them and using them as a real video so that you can actually feed them to a downstream switcher. Or a PowerPoint presentation. You'd love to be able to have your switcher take in a PowerPoint presentation, but you need it to be an hd-sdi signal, whether it be SD or HD, but it has to be real video. And this is also a workflow consideration that the Convert DVI family of products do meet. Now, again, I told you you're going to be involved in this. I want to ask you guys, what market segment, what field do you work in? So just to understand the workflow considerations and whether in fact we're talking to the group specifically. So Charles, any guess on what our audience this afternoon is made up of?
Well, I think we targeted fairly heavily the broadcast industry, especially with the making of this product. So I think the broadcasters are going to be a big part of it, but also government and corporate and education. Educational, I think those are going to be part of it as well, because the feature set of this product can manage so many different applications that all of these people are going to be able to find their needs, and AV companies as well should be fairly represented just as house of worship. So we'll see what the polls are.
Yeah, I actually added one of the choices as medical industrial imaging, because we've also got a lot of feedback from the medical industry where the cameras themselves have a DVI output, but they actually need to be mixed with other equipment like switchers, but the switchers need the input to be a real true SDI signal. So that's why looks like 80% of our respondents have just about, so let me just give it a few seconds here, just about finished. Good, you guys are still thinking about where you are. Thought that was an easier question than that. But let's give it a second. Okay. It should be about it. So let me just broadcast the results. So it's, like you said, we did focus on broadcast with the feature set, and actually where we're talking about this product is in the broadcast market. Glad to see that corporate and government is also represented at 27%. Houses of worship, I know that you've been trying to get into that crowd, Charles, and you've been talking to them about some features and evolution of the product. So that's it's good to see that they're represented there, but we'd like to see that be in double digits at least. So good. So with respect to what we have, I think that ultimately you're all going to get a lot out of this webinar. Now that we know who is making up our audience, just let's continue on understanding who we are and what the Convert DVI Plus is all about. So the workflow considerations that we put in there is Genlock, very important, and I'll make a very important point there. Region of interest support, like I said, it's not always the full screen. Aspect ratio compensation, so you can actually achieve the look you want depending on the video that you're selecting or area of the screen you're selecting. SDI audio embedder, also very important. It's not just a video converter. You want to make sure that audio is also able to be part of the stream. And the standalone mode. People want to be using this product as a appliance, and Charles is going to show you how you could do that with the demonstration a little later. So let's jump into Genlock. So Genlock goes by many names. You hear it as reference, black burst. What is it really? Well, essentially, Genlock is just black video. That's all it is. So hence the name black burst. Now, it tells each device to capture frames at exactly the same time. And by having everything capture frames at exactly the same time, it gives us the ability really to seamlessly dissolve from one source to the next. You know, without it, you have mismatched frames, and instead of a nice clean cut, you have a really messy, nasty cut. And the reason I'm making such a big deal about Genlock is because there's a lot of confusion about, you know, whether a DVI to hd-sdi converter is a scan converter. I'm here definitely to say it is absolutely not a scan converter. There are many low-cost scan converters you can find that take a DVI and convert it to an SDI signal. But if it's not Genlockable, you can't use it. You know, you really can't use it within a real video production environment. Without Genlock, your converter is really not, you know, it cannot be used as a source, which really limits the ability of what you can do with it. So the Genlock input is key here, and this is something that we wanted to make a big deal about because, you know, all of our equipment that we sell on the OEM side that go into these broadcast environments are all Genlockable. When it came to creating a scan converter, we didn't even give it two thoughts. Of course it has to be Genlockable. So that's one. Region of interest, obviously. I'm going to show, you know, focus your attention on here that the products are SD and HD. I know that the theme was turning it into hd-sdi, but it is also a transitional product. So something that can help you take the region of interest, output the HD if you want, and also be able to turn that region of interest to an HD output when you go HD. So the same product, just with, you know, the GUI commands could turn into an HD output quite easily. So region of interest with positioning, very cool feature. Ability to take the region of interest, put it on the screen where you want, add a color background if you want, and now you can actually send that to a downstream keyer to be able to then add a lower third, for example. This is an example that actually one of our customers really do use. They have their website, and the website has content with rich graphics. For example, here it's weather. You go and take your region of interest the way you want it, where you want it, position it, add a color background, and now you have a very, very inexpensive CG that you can fill or feed into your downstream keyer and key out and put your program video right there. So very cool feature. It's cool enough that, you know, Charles listened to our you know, our customers out there and put it in. Now we're just curious, and I put this poll question here and open it up, whether you actually feel that this region of interest feature with scaling, positioning, color background is actually a useful feature. Do you see yourself using it, or was Charles just overzealous and giving the market a cool feature, but not necessarily useful?
Well, I seriously think that this feature is very, very useful. It's also very powerful and flexible. You can use it in so many cases. I'll show you later on the demo many different usage that you can make of this feature. But I'm sure some people out there are going to be able to find new ways to use it, so please feel free to let us know. We're always trying to find new ways to use our product and find more efficient ways to do so.
Well, let me give the audience a little time to answer. I hope in your case that we actually use our resources to something that's going to be used. Charles will give this is the best feedback, and I love webinars for this reason, is we get instant feedback on whether we're doing the right thing and listening to the right crowd. So I hope the results actually show quite favorably in your favor. So let me just broadcast the results. Look at that, Charles. 90% of the customers or the audience members here actually see this as more than just cool, and they actually use it. So congratulations.
That's great.
Good job.
Excellent.
So let me continue with this. So region of interest and panning. Like I said, this is actually a very popular workflow where you can take the portion of your website, and a lot of people are doing this, where they're broadcasting their website, and while they're walking through or having the region of interest move, you have a pan through and have a real SDI output, so you can walk through certain areas and draw attention to website, certain portion of the website that you want. So region of interest with panning is something that's a workflow consideration we folded in. Now, aspect ratio compensation, a very basic feature, but something that I want to highlight that is found. So you can have a letterbox, if you will, of your region of interest. You can do a center cut, make sure that obviously you're going to lose some information from the original region of interest, but it's a choice within the graphical user interface that you have complete control over. Have the ability to do a pillar box if you start with a 4x3 type of region of interest. You can do anamorphic if you want to be cruel and show her as if she's gained 20 pounds. But these are all things that you can do. Now, off to real-life workflows, and I want to share with you a real-life workflow that really hit home in terms of what the scan converter product was created for and what it allows people in the news industry and broadcast industry to do. So I want to share with you the WYFF story. They have something that they call the Next Generation News, which consists primarily of streaming live video from the field, from news events that are happening using their cell phone network or internet. It presented, obviously, an overwhelming opportunity for them to be very competitive, but it came with unexpected problems, obviously. What they needed was a scan converter that provided video and audio conversion, but again, I'm going to go back to Genlock. They wanted it to be Genlock so it can allow them to use the computer-generated video and audio in the news broadcast, and being able to incorporate these videos that are coming from the field into their regular broadcast has given them a real edge. So, you know, for instance, WYFF covers South and North Carolina, and you know, on primary election night last year, what they did was they went live from multiple candidate headquarters using Next Generation News. You know, normally on a normal night, their 3 NG vans and 1 SNG truck was quite adequate, but not on election day. The Next Generation News equipment, including the Convert DVI, really enabled them to cover 5 additional candidates, you know, live at their headquarters and their locations, which was far more than what their competition could do, and this actually gave them more eyeballs. Obviously, in news, it's all about more eyeballs, and doing HD is not enough. You need to be able to give your viewing audience more content, and what they did was they take the information from the cloud, from the cell network or for the internet, bring it into the computer connection. So this here is your DVI output of your computer, USB, and power. So I'm just focusing into the computer connections. Normally they have that on a computer screen, but what they did is they actually put Convert DVI between the computer and the screen. So obviously you can run your screen, but then they focused in on a region of interest, send that to the switcher, and now you have the ability with mixing it with other SDI sources to be able to use it as one of the program outputs and switch to. This was key. Now, if this wasn't interesting enough, when we were talking to them about how they used it and they were so happy with this workflow, they even told us, oh, by the way, I also use it as an HD still store, which is something that we didn't think about, to be honest. But obviously, it's quite a simple workflow that, of course, you can do this. I mean, they use something as simple as Windows Picture Viewer, and having these very high-quality shots, you know, they can convert them into hd-sdi signals. Now, imagine mixing that with the other SDI sources, having the ability to have that as a program out. The other thing, combine that, they didn't do this, but you combine that with the scaling and positioning, you can really get a cool over-the-shoulder shot that you can flip through while the anchor is talking about whether a fire down the street or a military operation or what have you. Charles is going to go through that with you in a second through the demonstration, but I just wanted to share with you these real-life workflow considerations and workflows that are happening out there. The last workflow consideration was standalone mode. So whether you don't trust your operator or as simple as the scan converter is always going to be used in a certain way, well, use it as an appliance then. And for example, you'd want to do that if your Scan converter is always scan converting, for example, the YouTube video window. So you'd set it up, you'd set up the coordinates of the region of interest to hug the YouTube video window, and then you basically don't ever want to fool around with it again. So what you do is you set up with your laptop or desktop with a USB connection, you program the unit to do what you want it to do, you then disconnect it, add your sources. Here I have even a Mac DVI output as your input source to the scan converter, whether it be an industrial camera or medical camera, and now you have the ability to scan convert it to an hd-sdi output. Okay? Now, I'm interested to know where your computer or content is coming from, whether it's PC or Mac. So I'll open up another poll, and the reason why I'm asking this is, as I said, Charles is investigating the house of worship market, and he found something to be quite interesting. I'll have him share with you what he's found in that experience.
Excellent. Yeah, in the house of worship market, they mostly use a presentation software called ProPresenter, and that used to be only for the Mac. They just came out with a new version for the PC. But ProPresenter was being used in this market, so the market is mainly Mac-based, which, to my surprise, I thought it would be PC-based, just like, let's say, broadcasters are often PC-based. What I'm expecting from this poll is to be a little over on the PC side, but still I think Mac is going to be fairly represented. I hope that some industrial and medical cameras are going to be out there, so we'll see from the poll's results.
Well, let me close that poll and see what we got. It looks like we have about 80% of our respondents, so let me just broadcast the results. Looks like we got, yeah, almost a 60-40 split. PC, Mac. Mac is well represented, Charles, so
Very
I think
well.
that what you're seeing in the house of worship is also maybe, you know, in the other industries as well. So very interesting. Thank you for that feedback. I'll continue right along, and this portion is where Charles is going to show you exactly how to achieve the workflow and give you a glimpse into what makes the Convert DVI tick.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Frank. Now this is time for the demo, but before I get going with the demo, I'm going to show you with this little PowerPoint slide how the Convert DVI is connected through all the gear I have here. So in front of me, it's a very basic setup right now. In front of me, I have right now a Convert DVI right here that's connected through a power source. And it is connected via USB to this computer here for getting the information about how the region of interest is going to work and all the functionalities. The video source is actually coming from the same computer through the DVI out into the Convert DVI. Now, typically what I would be using right now is this SDI output to the SDI monitor, but because it is fairly hard to send you the attendees, the hd-sdi feed. Right now I'm going to show you something very innovative that we have added into the Convert DVI UI, so I will show you that in just a few minutes. I also want to direct your attention towards right here. This is the reference in, so this is for your Genlock, either bi-level or tri-level. Those three inputs right here, they're the analog outputs of the Convert DVI because this device can output simultaneously digital and analog. So for the analog outputs, we have components and either composite or S-video. There's also two RCA jacks here for analog audio out. So it is possible to output analog audio for the usage of those analog output source for video. So now with the demo, give me one quick second to share my computer screen with you. And here we go. Excellent. So to get started, you need the Convert DVI Convert Utils panel, which you can find in the Tray app here. It's that little icon, so I'm going to double click on this, and this is the control panel. It typically opens on the Output tab, which is the basic, all the basic functionalities are here. This is where you choose your output format, whether it is NTSC, 720p, 1080i at various frame rates, and even PAL right here. You can also set your analog output like I mentioned, so we have either a component or a composite NS video. When you are in an interlaced file format, output format, you have an anti-flicker filter that you can enable or disable. This gets rid of all the jitter and the rough edges, so it smooths out the image. But if you take it off, then if you don't actually need it, it's going to take off that extra smoothness to your image. So sometimes it's good to take it off. We also have Proc Amp Control, like Fran mentioned. So if I click here, I can show you the Proc Amps panel. You can actually save those settings when you're done, so it's quite efficient that way. You can also embed or disable the embedding of the audio onto the SDI signal. Something very important that Frank mentioned was the Genlock. So this is the Genlock tab. You can choose either the internal clock from within the Convert DVI, usually when you don't need a Genlock source, or if you're in a real environment, a real video environment, and you need an external Genlock, you can select the external here. We have all these different Genlock settings. And it is possible to actually use these sliders here to offset the timing. So whether your Genlock source isn't proper with the Convert DVI, you're possible to tweak that and even default it by using these buttons. So now to the innovation I spoke about earlier. What we added to the Convert DVI in the third release was this Show Video Output Scaling and Positioning window, which is basically a live preview window, this window right here. So as you can see, we can see exactly what is on the desktop right now. So this is basically what the Convert DVI is outputting. So in a broadcast environment, or any environment that you're using this product with, this can be used as a live preview window. So it removes the need for a hd-sdi monitor for preview. So it's a very efficient solution. It brings the whole solution to way cheaper because you can achieve this preview without the need of this extra monitor, which is quite neat. From this panel, you can also pick your scaling factor. So whether it be anamorphic, 1:1, we have pillar box or center cut here. So those are your scaling factors. So let's say you want to output something in full screen. I'm going to go to this Google Earth tab. So right now we can see that the entire desktop is being outputted to the Convert DVI. So what you want, this isn't really typically what you would like to do. So let's say we go to a YouTube video. So I have this YouTube video of Big Buck Bunny that I'm going to start. That's a quite neat little film. So I'm going to go into Genlock tab and Region of Interest tab, and I'm going to enable the Region of Interest. So here you have it, the Region of Interest. You can pan it or scale it on the content like you want. And if you notice here in the preview window, this is exactly where the region of interest is. A really neat feature that we added is those presets here. So I'm going to go to the Skype preset that I've made previously. I'm just going to, on the YouTube preset that I've made previously, I'm just going to click on it, and we can see right away that this snapped around the YouTube video, and it's exactly what we're outputting to our Convert DVI. Another way to use it, I wanted to go a little quicker it seems, is through Skype. So let me find my Skype video right here. So I have this Skype video. It's actually a rigged video. So I'm going to go to my Skype preset. I'm just going to click on it, and here you have it in the output window. You see that little lady waving at us. So this is our Skype video being outputted by the Convert DVI. Now, if let's say you want to use something else, let's say you're a broadcaster, you have a website, and you're investing quite a lot of money to maintain that website, and you have, let's say, just like here, you have a ticker with a lot of information that gets updated up to the minute. Well, you can use that in your live broadcast, TV broadcast. So what we could do here is use the region of interest. I could pan it and come and scale it here, or I could use one of the presets I've made earlier. So here you see it. It's actually what I've zoomed in on with my region of interest. I can actually pan this to the bottom of the screen, and I could also scale it, which is quite neat. So I'm scaling on both sides here, and I can also pick a color background. So I'm going to go pick this color here, and here you have it. This is an ideal way to get computer-based content from your website to broadcast, and with a downstream keyer, it is possible to key on that color, remove it, and then overlay the graphic on top of your broadcast. So it's it's a very efficient technique to do so. Another way to use this is like Frank mentioned earlier, as an HD still store. So WYFF showed us how to do this. We didn't even think of this. So I'm going to put my region of interest around this image here. I'm just going to double click in my preview window, which brings it back to anamorphic here instead of one-to-one scaling. So as you can see here, we have this image of a fire. We have that same image of a fire on the live preview window. And now if I flick through the images, and I'm simply using Windows Picture Viewer, nothing fancy here, not a big software, not a big cost. It's absolutely free with every copy of Windows. We can go through all these images. Well, let's say you really like this hurricane image. You have a coverage of a hurricane, but you would need it, let's say, as an over-the-shoulder shot. Well, you can do so. You can just come in the preview window, and you can use the scaling. Let me just scale this properly. The scaling and positioning. So I'm scaling the image. I'm going to position it right here. This is ideal for an over-the-shoulder shot. And as you can see, if I flick through those images again, I can still see them and the over-the-shoulder shot. So this is a very, very efficient way to use this product. And again, with the downstream keying application, you just key on this color, you overlay the graphics on top of your live coverage, and you have a very, very cheap solution in replacement of a full CG system. Now, just to wrap up this demo, I'm just going to go through the last two tabs that we have here. We have the Display Modes tab in our UI. This mode is actually to load custom display resolution. Let's say you have a special medical camera, which has a very intricate dimension, let's say 333 pixel by 221. That's not a conventional resolution. So we enable the user to actually load custom resolution through this panel. You need to contact Matrox customer support. We would build this resolution for you. You simply load that little file, and there you go. You can use that camera with the Convert DVI. Now, if ever you load something like this and you want to revert back to the default setting, well, we added this Reset DVI Output button right here that you simply push, and then it resets to the default sets of display resolutions. In the Admin tab, you have a lot of great features. You can lock the control panel and assign a password. By doing so, you make sure that nobody actually can come and change your settings on the unit itself. You can view the current settings. By doing so, you can view the current settings as the unit plugged into a computer via USB, or in standalone mode, which I will talk about in just a minute. You can actually save entire projects. I showed you earlier that we have presets for the region of interest, but you can actually save the entire project. That means your output resolution, your Genlock settings, your region of interest, everything basically. So if, let's say, you always use this in a YouTube setting and you're broadcasting that as SD, and then sometimes you use it as well on Skype conversations, but on that application, you broadcast it as HD, well, you can save two different projects, and everything's going to get loaded every time you load each of the projects. Now, right here is the standalone mode portion of this tab. So here you can actually program the unit for standalone mode. So what you do is you set up the unit as you would for your application. So let's say you put a 1080i with a region of interest and an external Genlock. Well, you simply hit that Program Current Settings button. It's going to take all those settings and cook it right into the board, and then you simply unplug it from the power source, plug it back to the power source, and it's ready to go to be used with any device that broadcasts the same output resolution that you programmed it for. And finally, the keyboard shortcuts. Well, you can add keyboard shortcuts for the presets, especially for the region of interest. So let's say you have many region of interest, you can simply add keyboard shortcuts for them and quickly go from one region of interest to the other. The last thing I want to bring your attention to is this freeze output button. So unfortunately, it is really hard. It's actually impossible for me to demo it for you today, but it is possible to freeze the output, which actually frees both your analog and your digital output. So your hd-sdi or composite component as video output, you're able to freeze it, make changes on your desktop, and then unfreeze it for a seamless transition. So that's a very, very neat feature as well if you want to look into that. So that sums it up for the demo today. I'm going to pass it back to Frank, who's going to give you more information on the entire Convert DVI family of products. Frank?
Thanks, Charles. So where do I go, big boy?
Click on the stop.
Right here. Okay. Bear with. Oh, I'm going to have to take your region of interest out again. So let me just go here. Perfect. Thank you, Charles. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of a taste of what the Convert DVI Plus is all about. And again, the setup that we have here is what we have in the room, very basic setup, minimal setup. So we'll talk about in the Q&A portion if you have any more questions on the connections and how we can do it. So Convert DVI family is made up of two products, the Convert DVI Plus and the Convert DVI. They look very, very similar, but there are very distinct feature differences. And let's get into it. So region of interest with downscale only. This is something that Convert DVI can only do. The Convert DVI can only do downscaling. So if you have an 800 by 600 region of interest and you want to output it as an SD signal, you can, obviously. But the Convert DVI Plus can do both downscaling and upscaling. So the Convert DVI Plus obviously can give you the 800 by 600 as an SD signal. It could also do an upscale to 1920 1080, a true proper HD signal. Okay. The other difference is the Convert DVI has a region of interest that if you want to position it, it's always positioned in the center. Whereas the Convert DVI Plus can actually, you can use this feature to position it anywhere on the screen and add a color background. This is something very unique just to the Convert DVI Plus. Okay. Proc Amp Controls, again, feature that was only implemented on the Convert DVI Plus product, and we went through why and how you can use that. The freeze unfreeze button that Charles showed you, he had a Convert DVI Plus in the room, hence he could show you that a feature that we can enable on the Convert DVI Plus. Now what that does is, like he said, is if you want an anchor to talk about, for example, Google Earth, and have, and press the freeze button, you can have that broadcasting out while the next shot is created. So you can go, position your region of interest to YouTube, put that on, press play, you like what is playing out, you see it in that preview window that Charles showed you, you press unfreeze, and instantly you have a cut between the Google Earth output and the YouTube video. So this is a unique feature only found in the Convert DVI Plus. Now, the last thing, budget. Like we said, quality, workflow flexibility are great, but if it breaks the bank, what's the point? Well, price and availability on these two products are as such. The Convert DVI Plus is $14.95, Convert DVI is $9.95, with the differences that we just showed you, and they're both available now. Now, this is important to us. When we set out to put a stake in the scan converter market, we wanted to give the quality that's accustomed to Matrox, the Matrox brand, the workflow flexibility, and showing the industry that we are evolving our features for features that are actually worthwhile for you. And clearly, one of the ones that Charles put in clearly was a good feedback from the market in the fact that we're implementing it. But we don't stop there. If we can't give it at a point where it's affordable and it's an technology that you can actually taste easily, then we haven't done our complete job. And with this product line, I think we did a fantastic job doing that. So the takeaway is, when considering a scan converter, please consider the three subjects that we've put here. And bear with me for one last poll question. We want to make sure that the quality, workflow, and budget is key, and we think we did a good job with the Convert DVI Plus product. We just want to know exactly what you think. So the last poll question of the day, before we wrap it up and go into Q&A, is does the Convert DVI Plus fit your needs? What do you think? Have we done a good enough job explaining what it does and how you could use it? We'd love to hear your feedback on. If you're not sure yet and you have questions, we're going to go into our Q&A portion, but we, based on the workflow in broadcast specifically, and other areas where we see that the continued evolution of this product could really fit the majority of the needs.